Right, Farooq Abdullah spoke to me today in an exclusive interview. The former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister has been facing several charges in the last week, from accusations that he patronized terror in the late 1980s to suggesting that he didn't do enough to stop the killings and the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits that is now the focus of a movie, Kashmiri Files. Farooq Abdullah instead claimed that the movie had given a one-sided, distorted view of history and that he was willing to be hanged if any of the charges leveled against him turned out to be true. Tonight, right at the very top, is Farooq Abdullah Unplugged. Take a look. And joining us now is our newsmaker tonight, the man who finds himself in the line of fire, some would say, the former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister, Dr. Farooq Abdullah. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Abdullah. Let's cut the chase, go to the big question. The BJP and many of its supporters suggesting that Farooq Abdullah has blood on his hands because it was during your tenure as Chief Minister that the killings of Kashmiri Pandits and then the exodus began. That's how the BJP is framing the issue at the moment, especially after the film Kashmiri Files. Your response?
My response is that if they think the blood is on my hands, I would like them to appoint a commission. An honest judge, retired, or anybody they want to, and let him find the facts. And they will know exactly that Farooq Abdullah is not at all to be blamed.
And if that commission was to find that Farooq Abdullah is culpable, what?
The exodus did not take place in my rule. It took place when Delhi government was there and their governor was in Kashmir. Farooq Abdullah had already resigned long before that.
1 minute. Let's go point by point, because this is a very serious issue. Let's discuss it. Let's put it in the context. You become Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir in 1987, and I'll come to 87 in a moment. But you are Chief Minister till the 19th of January 1990. The first killing of a the group killing of a Kashmiri Hindu is 14 September 1989. That is Tika Lal Taplu, advocate, prominent leader of Bharatiya Janata Party. You were the Chief Minister. Do you concede that the first killing took place when you were the Chief Minister? Yes or no? Then I'll come to the exodus.
Yes. Yes, it did take. Not only did him, many of the others. Why do you forget my party man, who was also shot, Yusuf Halwai, because he on 15th of August, they had said it's a black day, and he lit his entire house. How can you forget him?
You say though, no, 1 minute. You say that the exodus didn't take place when you were Chief Minister. Yet in 1997, when the Jammu and Kashmir government brings the Migrant Immovable Property Act, migrant is a person who has migrated from Kashmir Valley after 1st November 1989. That is the date which is put in the act. That was when you were Chief Minister. The exodus starts slowly from November. It peaks after the 19th of January.
No, hear my answer. Hear my answer. Hear my answer. Why was this done? Because there were, in both the communities, there were people who were wanting to take their homes and their lands by illegal means. To stop that, we brought in that act so that nothing is done to disrupt the harmony that was existing there. They could not sell anything unless the government was there to see to it and then permit it. That is why it was done.
Dr. Abdullah, what you cannot deny is that the atmosphere of fear builds up from, as I said, the first killing takes place in September, starts building up, culminates on the 19th, and ironically, within hours of your resigning, suddenly you have an atmosphere of fear right across the valley, slogan shouting, announcements of Azadi being made from mosques, and from the 20th, the exodus gathers momentum. 70 to 75,000 families of Kashmiri Pandit lived in Srinagar and in the valley, and by the end there were just a few hundred. So clearly somewhere the chronology samajiye Farooq Abdullah ji, you cannot completely wash your hands off what happened between 89-90.
Rajdeep, for God's sake, was it I who did this? Fear was not only in Hindus. Fear was in Muslims and Sikhs, all those who lived in the valley. It was in everybody. Rocket was thrown on my house. My children were also scared, but I never gave up. We fought them.
No, you resigned. You resigned on January. No, but someone must take responsibility.
Ministers.
You're the chief minister. Who do you hold responsible? Let's be very clear. Who do you hold responsible for the traumatic events of 89-90?
Why did I resign?
Please tell me.
Look, Rajdeep, why don't you listen to me? Why did I resign? I was fighting the big power across the border. Not government of India at that time. I was holding the fort with all that I could. And I did it very well. Till they changed. And I asked them, don't send this governor. He will create tragedies. They didn't listen.
Are you denying?
That is when I told them before that if he comes, then the battle is between you and them, between the government of India and those that are across the border.
Are you denying the one of the main charges that is being made by the BJP today, or the spokesperson and the IT cell of the BJP, that dozens of hardcore terrorists were set free by Farooq Abdullah's government in 1989, which set the valley in flames?
Please go back and talk to Dulat, who was the IB chief there in Kashmir. It was not I who was releasing them. It was the High Court at that time that was releasing them. And then I had to request the Chief Justice of that time, Justice Anand, to kindly listen to these petitions that are being put in, and by false things they are going to be released. That is history.
Now, why didn't you fight to stop the release of terrorists? Why didn't Farooq Abdullah say in 1989 itself that if these terrorists are released, because that process had begun in 89, that I will...
I did everything possible within my command.
Who was doing that?
I did everything possible within my command.
Like what?
Pardon me?
Like what? What did you do? What did you do to stop?
I took every action, arrested them, got them arrested. How could I do? I don't have this much of army that you have today, and still there is terrorism. Ask Government of India, with all the army, all the BSF and everybody else, CRPF, there's still terrorism there. Have they been able to control it? I had a simple force. Ask my DG, Jagat, Gurbachan Jagat, and those men who fought.
There have been other police officers, of course, like Mr. Vaid, who have said that not enough was done at the time, and that therefore the Kashmiri Pandit community was the prime target to, in a sense, create a Hindu-Muslim divide, and Farooq Abdullah was unable to stop it, at least accept that you were unable to stop it.
That's why I tell you very frankly, why don't they appoint a commission to see? When I requested them repeatedly for commission, even Chitty Singh Pora, when Sikhs were massacred, and Clinton was here, President of America, they asked that judge to go, who was investigating the murder of those 5 innocent shopkeepers who were shown as the murderers of Chitty Singh Pora. And finally that judge found they were not the murderers. But why was he stopped from investigating further the murder of those Sikhs? Why?
But Dr. Abdullah, you've told India
Have
Today.
you the answer?
You've told India Today magazine earlier today that you are ready to be hanged. Hang me, you've said, if you can prove that I was in any way culpable for the deaths or the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits. You stand by that. Am I correct?
Please, I am not changing my words. I am not going to change my words just for you. I stand by that. Appoint a commission. Look into all the tragedies that have taken place in that place.
Let's turn.
And then decide.
Let's turn, Dr.
Not
Abdullah.
by just mere film,
Sure.
which is like a Goebbels and Hitler's story.
You're calling the film a Goebbels Hitler story. Let's turn to two seminal events that were associated with you. And I want a clear, transparent answer tonight because this is critical. One is 1987, the elections that take place under the backdrop of a so-called Rajiv Gandhi Farooq Abdullah Accord. And the general view is that election was rigged to stop the Muslim United Front from winning seats. As a result, it gave a huge impetus to secessionism. I can tell you myself, Sayyid Salahuddin told me on record when I was in Pakistan that his election was robbed, he was rigged, that election was rigged, and that's how you created the monster of terror. Yasin Malik was Salahuddin's election agent at the time. He was beaten up, arrested. Do you concede today that the 87 election was rigged and became the turning point
Please
in
tell me one
secessionism?
thing. Just tell me one thing. How many people of MAF were fighting the election? How many people of MAF were fighting the election? Tell me. How many? Tell me the number. How many?
There were
That they could change.
no, but was the
The
election
results,
rigged in
results.
certain key constituencies or
Tell
not?
me.
Was the 87 election rigged, sir?
Look, let me tell you. Anywhere if the election is rigged, like they said when they dethroned Mrs. Gandhi, do you remember? They went to the court. Why did he not go to the court? Why did he go to the election commission? Why?
So you are completely denying the charge
Answer
that
this.
the elections of 87 were rigged
When
that gave
when
a
you
fillip
point the
to
finger on
secessionism.
me, Rajdeep,
Yes.
if election was rigged, why did my minister lose? Deva Saab of Anantnag, how did he lose? How did he lose? Then he should have won. Why did he lose?
Two other seminal
Why
events.
do you look at one side,
Okay.
not the other side?
Let me come to two other events. You're denying that the elections were rigged. 86 temples are desecrated in Anantnag. Many believe that too was a turning point. That too, in a sense, widened the divide. Yes or no?
I was not in power then. Let me tell you, you don't know the story.
You were not in power, but it
The
happened.
government that was placed at that time. And let me hold on, I was not in power. And Mr. Nehru, who was Home Minister,
Arun Nehru.
he rang me and said, Farooq, can you save us? Yes. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, please, can you go to that place and see what has happened? I said, you got your chief minister, you got your government. Why don't you ask them? Why me? He said, no, you're the only one who can help us. And I went. And to the utter surprise of all of you, when I went to that place, in one house, the man came and said to me that in this Hindu house I put my daughter, took all the pictures of Hindu gods out and make us sit in the balcony to recite Quran. Because those people who had come to attack them were not from that area. They had been given map of which was the Hindu house and which was the Muslim house and what was there. They opened that map and suddenly they saw that this is a Hindu house. He said, no. They slapped that girl while she was reciting Quran. And the father said, what are you doing? This is my house. I saw that myself also, which you don't know.
I want to turn to another event, which is
This was done.
Let's turn to another
To dislodge. This was done.
Okay.
This was done to dislodge GM Shah.
Okay.
This was done.
Okay, you're admitting that. That's good.
You don't know this.
I
That's
know
a
it,
tragedy.
sir. I know it, and I know exactly what happened in Anantnag. There are question marks over a number of people's role, including that of Mufti Mohammad Saeed, your long-time rival, and how local politics played out. But 1989, and again Mufti Mohammad Saeed then Home Minister of India. His daughter Rubaiya Saeed, December 8th, 1989, is kidnapped. The terrorists demand the exchange of 5 JKLF terrorists, and on the 13th of December, the government hands over those terrorists. Do you believe that was a turning point? Why didn't you at that moment say, no, this is not acceptable?
Don't you know? Read that letter that I have written to the President of India at that time. And the copy lies with the governor in Srinagar also. See in that letter. And thank God, the governor of Kerala is still alive.
Arif Muhammad Khan.
Arif Muhammad Khan Saab. Ask him. When Gujral Saab and he came and said, you have to release them. And I told them, this will be the last nail in the coffin of India. Don't do it. Did they listen? I told them very clearly, now it's your responsibility if anything happens here.
You're saying very clearly,
Ask Arif Muhammad Khan, he's still
you're
alive.
saying that you said, do not release the terrorists.
And at
you're
that
saying
time,
you
let
were
me tell you,
overruled. You're saying you were overruled.
Hold on. At that time, the other persons who were in that room was Tulat as the chief of IB, and Musa Raza, my chief secretary, and Narayanan, who was then the DIB. They were all there. And thank God, many of them are alive, except Gujral Saab. Ask them, they will tell you.
So you were overruled. You objected to the release, you're saying, of the terrorists in exchange for Mufti Muhammad Saeed's daughter Rubaiya. You were overruled.
I was overruled number of times. I was overruled at this time. I was overruled when they took the plane and those terrorists to Kandahar. I was overruled. And I begged them, don't do it.
How do you respond?
They didn't listen.
How do you respond though, Dr. Abdullah, that you resign
don't
on the
blame me.
19th? How do you respond though that you resign on the 19th of January 1990, and by the 20th the exodus, the violence has, there is an atmosphere of fear, there's violence, and Kashmiri Pandit families leave the valley, start leaving within 24 hours. Explain that. Some believe that this was, that therefore Farooq Abdullah can't just wipe his hands off what happened on the 19th and 20th of January 1990.
There are still officers alive. Ask them who put the buses for them, who drove them out. You ask.
Are you blaming Jagmohan?
Are you saying
Jagmohan? Are you saying Jagmohan, as the governor of Jammu and Kashmir, asked Kashmiri Pandits to leave the valley?
You just put a commission and you will know who is responsible. Whoever is responsible, the commission will find out.
Do you concede, though, that in your second term as Chief Minister, Jammu and Kashmir witnesses massive massacres such as Vandama, Sangrampora, Prankot, all of where Hindus are targeted, Kashmiri families are targeted, Pandit families are targeted, and you were unable to do anything to stop those massacres in your term in 1996?
Have you seen Parankot? Have you seen Parankot, where it is? In the mountains? I went there. And my DIG, who then became DG, he's still alive, living in Hyderabad. He was walking in the Nala. We didn't know where this place was. I came in the helicopter. We stopped, landed. My helicopter pilot refused to land. He said, no, there are terrorists, we can't land. I said, you land. There was a man tilling his land, and we said, where is this Parankot? He pointed to the mountain. We flew over it. And then I saw this DIG with his 4 people, police people. His foot was injured because of the area that he was walking in. I got down from the helicopter, gave him the helicopter, said, go there first. See. Innocent people who had nothing. Few clothes hanging, few dishes.
So, but that's precisely, but that's precisely, Dr. Abdullah, innocent Kashmiri, Dr. Abdullah, the fact is innocent Kashmiri Hindu families, as I said, from 75,000 families reduced to a few.
Within the constraints
where's
that I
the remorse? Where's the empathy?
I did everything.
No, no, you may have done everything. Where's the remorse, the empathy? They were pushed into refugee camps, rendered refugees in their own land in Jammu. Today, now, there is this collective amnesia that a movie is supposed to have finally given us a sense of memory of what happened.
Are you trying to pin me down to this thing, that I have done this whole thing? That I am behind all this?
No, I didn't say that.
Is this what you're trying to do?
No, I didn't say that.
Is this what you want to do?
No, sir. No, sir, not at all.
Yes, you are saying that.
What I'm trying to say is that you failed.
Your information is exactly that.
No, sir. I'm saying the Indian state
failed. You were not in the government at that time. You don't know the difficulties we are facing.
Sir, I am aware that Kashmiri Muslims and Kashmiri Hindus died. I am aware that they died of terrorism. But who do you hold responsible?
Who do you want to please?
Who's accountable? Who's accountable? Did the Indian state fail? That's all. Not Farooq Abdullah. Did the Indian state fail? And you were part of that state?
Who sent them? They are accountable. Who sent them? And our borders? Who protected our borders? Who? How did they cross the borders? How? How did they enter? With all weaponry. How?
You tell me. You tell me, sir.
What I tell you? Ask the people who control the border.
So you sound helpless. You were the all-powerful Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. You sound helpless to what happened in 89, 90 as well as after 96.
Look. For God's sake. You're not in my chair at that time. You don't know anything. I wish you were in my chair. You will know.
Can I though ask you this, that a movie has been brought out, you're calling it Goebbelsian, Hitlerian. Omar Abdullah is saying it's a bunch of lies. Do you believe all these years later, at least the movie gives the average Kashmiri Pandit family, many of whom had to become refugees in their own land, a sense of emotional catharsis? Because there's a sense that their concerns were, in a way, they lost out. Kashmiri Muslims were alienated in the valley. Kashmiri Hindus were driven out. But the Kashmiri Hindu story was never told. How do you respond? That this film tells their story.
Why are you saying one-sided thing? Then the Muslims, they're still lying in Jammu, many Muslims. Many Sikhs who left haven't come back. Why don't you think of them? Why don't you think of those 16 or 17,000 Muslims who died and number of Sikhs who died? Why don't you think of them also? Why? Are they not human beings? Are they not Indians? Why does the film only project one side? Why not everybody else? Why not those rapes of the women in Kupwara? Why not that? Why? Why are you only projecting one to create a hatred in the country? So that Muslims and Hindus start fighting each other and destroy this nation? Is that what you want to do?
In your view, Dr. Abdullah, is this
32 years.
Is this Hindu-Muslim or is it Pakistan?
What has this government done in 7, 8 years of taking them back? What did they do? What did they do? One incident took place, that of chemist Bindru being killed. All those 4,000 that Manmohan Singh ji had appointed in the valley ran within one day. With all the force that we have there, why was this government not able to stop that? Ask them.
I will certainly ask them. But
why did they run away?
Sir, but why is...
With all the troops that we have.
Sir, but closure must come from justice and reconciliation. Today, Kashmiri Hindus will say, where's the justice? Yasin Malik, accused of killing 4 IAF officers in 1990. Charges are framed only in 2020. In the meantime, he becomes an interlocutor or a stakeholder in the Kashmir dialogue. What is your response? Do you believe the Indian state has failed in these 32 years to provide a sense of justice and reconciliation?
Let me tell you.
Why is it that the Kashmiri Pandit
now
families
you ask
couldn't
me
come
something.
back? Yes, please go.
Why don't you listen now?
Please go.
Now listen to me.
Please go.
Now for God's sake, listen to me. Listen to me. Just listen to me. Do you know, when those 4 of Hizbul Mujahideen came to Chashma Shahi guest house to talk to Government of India, do you know? I was called here to the Home Ministry. Lal Bahadur Advani ji was the Home Minister. And he was told by his advisors that Farooq Abdullah does not want this meeting, that he will scuttle this meeting. When I came and he told me, I said, I'm not against any meeting. If it can get peace, please go ahead. Go ahead. You want any facilities from the government, we'll give you. But don't say that we don't want it. Then, see the picture of Prime Minister and Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji and all those people meeting Hurriyat leaders. Was Yasin Malik not part of that? Were they not part of that meeting? Why are you blaming Farooq Abdullah? What was that meeting about? The very man who you say had killed the Air Force people.
Sir,
What? Answer this.
so there were other Hurriyat leaders, moderate leaders who were there.
Have you any answer for that?
There were moderate Hurriyat leaders at that meeting. Yasin Malik was in and out of jail for the main part.
But you see, this is where you change your description. You make some people moderate and some people not moderate. What a strange thing, the way you do decide who is this and who is that.
My final question to you, do you believe as a result of this movie, it's time in a way for us to go back to 89, 90 and all the events that have taken place in the last 32 years and have maybe a Truth and Reconciliation Commission as they had in South Africa? Let's find out who's responsible for what. And will you depose before it?
I have always said, I have always said, please appoint a commission. Let them go into every gamut of this, so that at least the people of India and the world will know what happened, where was things went wrong. Everything will come out.
And
At least there will be peace in the minds of people. Today there is hatred in the minds of people.
you're saying there's hatred in the minds of people. Do you have a sense of remorse at all that has gone wrong, the hundreds of innocent lives that have been lost in the last 30 years?
Every Indian as much as me also, we have remorse in what happened. It didn't happen in 47 when the raiders came in and the National Conference stood up and said to those who had come with everything, irrespective of what religion they had, what was their slogan? Hamla avar khabardar, hum Kashmiri hain tayyar. With guns which were of wood, patrolled every street, that nobody is harmed. Do you know that? Do you know that when 5 Tongawalas were murdered in Jammu, in Nagarota, who took some of those Khatris, traders who were scared, and they took them to Jammu? Our Tongawalas were murdered. Still, we stood firm that nobody will be harmed. Even now, today, when you talk of all these things, 800 families are living there in comfort, in peace with their people.
Sir,
With
but
their
the
Muslim
notion, sir,
brothers.
but with due regard, sir, the
Doesn't that
notion,
show that?
sir, 800 families are living there where 175,000 families lived. I ask you for one last time, do you accept that the notion of Kashmiriyat, this so-called Kashmiriyat, celebrated Kashmiriyat, can only come if those Pandit families come back? What will it take to bring them back? What will it take to bring them back, Dr. Abdullah?
Stop hatred. Stop hatred between communities. Unless you stop that hatred in the communities, it will be impossible. Stop hatred.
Okay.
Start building atmosphere of love and affection for each other. That is the answer. There is no other way. The more you create tensions within the communities, the worse it will be for all of us.
Very, very strong words,
My
Doctor.
request to your television channel is also very, very important. For God's sake, stop hatred.
Hatred and violence, dare I say, and it
As
must
Prime
stop
Minister
from
said
both
to us,
sides.
दिल की दूरी और दहली की दूरी दूर करनी पड़ेगी.
Okay. I will leave it there, Dr. Abdullah. Whether that hatred was started by Islamic radicalism and Islamists, and therefore they must be primarily held responsible, is the way many will see it? That it's the Islamists and Islamic radicals who brought in hate into Kashmir
I
Valley?
think I would say it is radicalism on both sides. It is not only radicalism on one side. Don't put radicalism on one side. It's radicalism on both sides.
The Kashmiri Pandits,
That is
like it or
destroying
not,
this
were
nation.
peace-loving, sir. They did not throw
Stop.
the first stone.
Stop this radicalization. Stop. Stop.
They did not throw
Don't
any
tell
stones.
me what
in
I can
fact.
eat. Don't tell me what I can wear. And don't tell me whether I can do this or that. This is a free country.
So the Kashmiri Pandits were
Every religion
peace-loving.
has the
They
right
did not throw
to live
stones,
in
sir.
harmony.
They wanted harmony. Let's be clear.
They will also go
Pakistan-backed
back
terror,
one day, inshallah. If you
Pakistan-backed
stop
terror
hatred.
was
If
responsible
you
for
stop
what happened.
hatred, they will go back.
Pakistan-backed terror did what happened, was responsible, sir. Let's call
Why
a
didn't you
spade
say
a
that
spade.
earlier? Why didn't you say that earlier? Why didn't you say that earlier?
I say that today.
Except
But
you
they
put
had
blame
local
on me.
support.
Huh? Now you started coming to the. Now you're coming to the right path.
They had local support,
Ethnic
sir.
cleansing was done by them, not by Farooq Abdullah. Not by Farooq Abdullah.
They had
And
local
I've never
support, sir.
supported them.
They had local support.
Look, there are local supports in every part of the world. There's everything. Everywhere there is local and there is non-local. It's a question of thing that happens everywhere. Nothing new.
Sir, but you see, the thing is, this film has in a way struck a chord because many believe it is time for us to face up to all the inconvenient truths of all that went wrong in Kashmir in the 1980s, in the 1990s, and dare I say, all the way up to today. And therefore, I think, Dr. Abdullah, what you're saying, let's have a commission that looks at where we went wrong over the last 30, 40 years and ensure justice above all else, may be the only way to get closure. You cannot have closure without justice, without those who are responsible for the
Yes,
killings.
and also another thing. Also, Rajdeep,
Yes.
also Rajdeep, one thing more. All the money that this film is earning should also go for rehabilitation of those people who have migrated from Jammu and Kashmir, whether they are Hindus, Muslims or Sikhs. Let their rehabilitation be done with that money.
Sure. Well, I only wish that
That would be a great justice.
I only wish though that rehabilitation has to be done by the Indian state as well. Many of them have lived in very, very small houses in the Jammu Valley in extremely
Everybody
cold
has
conditions.
to do it.
No,
I
sir,
think
they were
everybody
refugees
can
in their
pay
own land.
A
So
little
the-
bit of for it.
Yeah, well, the
Everybody.
government also should have done its bit. Don't ask a private film producer to do it. It's the job of the government at the
Yes,
end of the day.
all of us have to do it. Every one of us has to do it.
It should have been done by now, sir.
It's everyone, not only the government. Don't push it only on the government.
It should have been done
Every
by now.
single Indian has to try.
You can't
And
render
that can
people
be done
refugees in their own
without
land, sir.
hatred.
Without
That can
hatred.
be done by creating more love and affection between communities.
Okay. I leave it there, Dr. Abdullah. I think your message
Yes.
is loud and clear. You've answered most of the charges that I
God
had.
bless, and I hope all goes well.
Thank you very much. Farooq Abdullah joining
Bye.
us here on the news today.